it's Allie Edwards and welcome to another story for December Daily 2021. Today I'm working on story number 8 and I'm kind of excited to dive into an idea that I had while I was driving around. Well, I thought about it a little bit yesterday and then I'm kind of going to I am going to try to flesh out, flush or flush? I think we've talked about this before. An idea out that is using this vellum pattern paper as a jumping off point to hold some stories. I don't think that I'm going to be working with photos today. I think that today is going to be a no photo day, which is always a nice reminder that that can be a way to tell stories. You don't always have to have a photo to tell a story. The vellum page, I started it originally in my foundation pages by adding the Right Now chipboard piece on there. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep that on there. I might adjust it off. I'm making some of those decisions right now. The story that I'm thinking about telling is a story that identifies some stuff around the house, right? That's kind of what I'm thinking. And part of the jumping off point is that for this is we've got a couple of these candles in the house this year, the balsam and cedar and the winter white. I'm thinking that they could sit perfectly if there was a little pocket right here, right? That it could be tucked in, and then maybe I find 3 other things around the house that are Christmas related sorts of things that I have some packaging for, or a tag or something like that. I like the idea of keeping some of the things. It's kind of like thinking about, you know, old time scrapbooks, right? Where people were putting newspapers and notes and not a lot of pictures necessarily, not of photographs, but other things. And so I'm thinking about that. And in order to create some pockets here, my initial idea was that I would use transparencies, and I would cut transparencies into half circle shapes that could create a pocket. And then as I was doing that, I looked ahead in my album, and as usual, I'm off a couple days. This is what happens once I start getting in here in terms of what I had for my foundation pages originally, which I am totally fine with. And so we're actually on day 8 now, and originally I had these pieces and a transparency, which I'm pretty sure that I'm just going to move it. Actually, I'm just going to do it right now because I know that I don't want to have necessarily like the wreaths and then the wreaths again. I would like to move the wreaths. We'll move the wreaths back a few days here, which should be fine in terms of the flow of my album and the stories that I want to tell. So let's come back to this page. So again, the concept here, the idea is how can I create pockets here? So cutting transparencies is one thing, but I also, as I was looking through, actually as I was looking at a page that I had originally established for day 8, I do have transparencies that were part of a tag set that we offered this year. There's the transparent tags. Actually, they're opaque. You can't see through them, so a different kind of transparency. So there were tags and there were circles. And so I'm kind of curious about the idea, if I was to use these and cut these in half, which I'm just going to do it on one of them here, cut them in half, could I then stitch them on to become the pocket? So it's an option to use those, or to use a clear transparency, or like a page protector. That's also something that you could use. You could just, if you don't have any other transparencies, you could use another kind of vellum, you know, any sort of thing. You could even use pattern papers, right? Or you could use half photos to create these pockets. Lots and lots of different things that you can do to then be able to slip things inside the pocket. One thing I'm wondering is, does this actually fit? Yeah, it should fit right inside there, depending on how I adhere that down there. My original idea was that I would stitch these on there. So I gotta think this through a little bit of how this will actually work. I think if I do these ones that have writing on them, I gotta decide, do I want to just stitch right on top of the writing, or would I rather have a clear transparent pocket? And I think I'm gonna get out of transparencies just so that we can play with that a little bit and see what that might look like. Here's another one. This is a vellum. Like, just so many different kinds of things that we could use here. so this is a random little piece of vellum that I had, but something like this would work too. See how it would create a little pocket, and then this could just sit inside the pocket, but it's definitely going to depend on how much of the edge I do. I kind of really like this one. This was one I just had in my stash. So, but like I said, I would use the same idea if I was going to use these plastic pieces, which is I would be cutting them in half and then stitching them on there. But I think that that's what I'm going to do, and just try, what does it look like if I stitch right along the edge. If you didn't stitch, you could, let's see, what could you do? You could just glue right around the edge. You could even put washi tape, or maybe even like a little bit of ribbon or a trim around there. That would be super cute too. Even like one of those ball trims. I wonder if I have any of those. That might be really, it might be too bulky, but I think what I'm going to do is try this with some thread. I'm going to take the red thread out of my machine and either put in like a green or a silver. Again, we're just playing. We're playing today. That's part of what's fun about this project and telling these kinds of stories, is giving ourselves the opportunity to stretch our creative muscles. Okay, so let's see what this would look like just if I did this one. The edge on a couple of those is like, and you could use vellum that came, or that we offered to you. Obviously, you can, there's lots of different things that you could do. See, I kind of want the 8 in there too. Like what things could I put into the pockets there? And then, like, this was what I had left of this piece of paper. So I'm gonna have to just kind of guess what is close to halfway, which is fine. That one's probably a little bit less. Yeah. And then I need to decide, do I want to keep that right now on there, or do I want to change up what my title is? I'm gonna set that on there for right now. And then I'm gonna go set up my sewing machine and see what I can do on there with this one. All right, so I was able to run it through the sewing machine. Note to self, always remember to check before you start stitching what kind of stitch you have, because yesterday I had a zigzag on there. So it works great. I think it looks cute. It's definitely not a perfect circle, which is not what I was going for at all anyway. I didn't have any expectation of that, but I think this is going to be really cute as to create 6 little pockets here. So I'm going to go ahead and keep doing that. I'm using just a tiny bit of adhesive on the bottom of the circle here, just to be able to hold it in place while I am moving the machine around on there. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna just keep going and then I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so I took it over to my sewing machine and I pulled the sewing machine out a little bit from the wall. I have, my shelves are on rollers, which makes it really easy to move these around in the office. I did switch out to green thread. I think the hardest thing with this one is just orienting the page with the half circle, like in an easy place to be able to try to go around in a half circle. The other tip that I really have is to go slow, and also to not be disappointed when it doesn't turn out like perfect circle. Like I definitely looked at this as it's going to be more of a messy circle than anything. Going slow, turning the page, and then having it stitch as you are actually turning the page. And I always do a little back stitch when I start and a back stitch when I end. And so then I went ahead and I repeated these steps 6 times on there. Super thankful for the sewing machine. It's just a simple Brother sewing machine. I've had it for a long time now, and I don't have any special needle or any special anything. I just use what you would normally use for fabric. I just use that on paper instead. Okay, my friends, while the camera was off, I did a number of things. One is I decided to set these back aside because I started thinking about another sticky note that I had, which was a story about wrapping paper and what we have left. This year I am not buying any new wrapping paper because I think that we probably have enough wrapping paper to last the rest of our lives. It's Christmas wrapping paper. And so what I did instead was I took my 2.5-inch punch and I went over to my wrapping paper and I just did circle punched. I circle punched the different papers that we have and then I organized them into groups. So I have Santas, stripes, woodlands, words, and then brown paper because I have a couple different kinds of just plain brown paper. And I drew up these little labels that I'm going to cut out, and I think that they should be able to fit right along here. And then I also pulled out, this is some wood grain vellum from Hero Arts that I bought, I think from scrapbook.com at some point in time. And I ran this through the silhouette, and so let's see if this works. I'm pulling it up for the first time. Gotta be careful. But I wrote out a phrase that basically says it's possible that I will never run out of wrapping paper. And I just thought it was funny. So let's see if we can get this up without ripping it. Gentle, gentle. And then what I'm thinking is that this could just essentially be a page, right, that's like layered on top of here. Let's see if this will come up. I really like this wood grain vellum. I haven't used it before. Oh, see, there's one spot where I already screwed up. I better not talk. Okay, it says it's possible that we may never ever run out of wrapping paper, and I just thought I was so funny. It's a little bit close to the edge, so maybe I'll do something along the edge there, pulling it back just a little bit, or have something that comes over the side. But my plan is that this page will just turn into this page here, and then I'll have my wrapping papers. I always love bringing out my silhouette or firing it up and using it a little bit more during this time of year, especially for word-based things. I always really like the look of that, so that seems pretty fun. And then here on the back side, like I said, so again, that was Hero Arts decorative wood grain vellum. I'll link it for you guys below if they still have it and if I can find it. And then I'm going to cut these out. The other thing that I was thinking about doing, one of the pattern papers that I really liked this year, this is in the extra pattern paper pack, so not in the main kit, but the extra pattern paper pack had all these really cute little flags with sentiments on the inside. And I'm thinking that I might cut one of these out, like the December stories, and it would fit right over the top of that. That's kind of what I knew when I was designing this one and when I was working on this on the computer, this paper, that I was going to want to cut it out. So that's kind of what I was thinking, rather than it being a paper that somebody would just add into their album. But of course it can be that too. I just thought it would be fun to be able to cut these out and have them in the album. Obviously I'm going to cut that out more, but I think that is kind of fun. Okay, so like I said, what I'm going to do next, I'm going to cut these out. Okay, so this is another spot in your project, if you're doing something similar to what I'm doing, where these strips could be many different things, right? The strips across the top could be washi tape. You could put letter stickers on here to designate the different patterns. You could stamp words on there. You could put fun pom-pom trim across the top. You could leave it blank. Like, there's lots of different ways. You could create half circles on the computer that have the title of your patterns on there, whatever is inside of your pocket, right? So thinking about what kind of story you want to tell and how can you label that, or how can you bring a little bit of additional context on there. The font that I used on those is called Blackout. It's a free font, I believe. I think it's Blackout is what I used. And then I went ahead and I grabbed my smaller scissors and cut out that banner that's on the pattern paper from the extra pattern paper pack. This is, again, isn't the one that's in the main kit. Super cute. And if you got the digital version of these, you could also print them out and cut them out that way. That's another way to be able to achieve the same kind of thing. I will be using some foam adhesive to adhere this onto the 8, but just going ahead and doing a little bit of fussy cutting to get this cut out. And as I was doing this today, I was thinking about how thankful I am most of the time to have things that are already die cut and to have products that are already set up like that. But at the same time, it's also fun to be able to customize it and cut out pieces that make the most sense for your story, especially on a pattern paper like that, where there are a lot of different options. So next up for me is going ahead and trimming out the rest of those labels. I actually had to print a second version of this, and you'll see that in a minute, because once I got to the bottom one, which is the brown paper, like it was too hard to do it on my trimmer, and then I screwed it up. So I reprinted another one and then cut it out. I'm leaving, I leave the strips, the white strips on there before I adhere it down, and then I trim it out, adhere it, and then I'll go back in and cut along the edges. There is a place in time where you could try to make the edges be curved to fit the half circle. I kind of tried that a little bit, and you'll see that a little bit if you see some up close pictures. But it's kind of hard to do that too. So this is one of those things where I wouldn't spend much time working on that or worrying about that at all. But I definitely liked having the labels on there because it just designated them a little bit more. And I bet that you might have different things that you like. Maybe you have a lot of floral wrapping paper, or you have a lot of candy wrapping paper, or just different patterns that could be on there. I think it's fun to kind of write a little bit and document what are the things that are in your wrapping paper stash. Or maybe you're somebody that's like, I hate wrapping paper and we're using all reusable sorts of things now, right? That's a story to tell also in your project there. I just added on the foam adhesive squares to the back of that December stories. And now I also picked up my scissors and I'm going around those edges and kind of just trimming them a little bit, giving them a little bit of a curve, but definitely imperfect overall. Okay, so another thing that I wanted to do with this one, something I talked about earlier this year, was wanting to use some eyelets again. So it looks so cute. I'm loving how this is turning out. So what I'm gonna do is just take my papers here and make them like that. They're almost like a little swatch book. And I'm gonna use the Crocodile that I haven't used in a million years, actually with an eyelet. I think we'll just do silver. Let's see what that looks like. Where it will then be in here like this, and I can put a little bit of string on it. Oh my gosh, I've been looking forward to doing this. Let's see if I remember how to do it. It's in the middle, and you put it in the hole, and then you squish it. Seriously, it's probably been years since I have done this. Woohoo! Oh my god, so fun. So then you can just like flip through my little samples. But think about, okay, so one of the things that I like to talk about in all my workshops and classes and all the things is being a translator of ideas. And what that means to me is that what I want you to do when you look at something like this is maybe you don't want to do wrapping paper, right? Like that, maybe that's not a story that you care about. But you might have a different story that you want to tell. You can use the same idea with a different story, right? Your story might be, it might be photos. It might be something else entirely, might be food. Like what kind of story could you tell using this same design setup? Is what I want you to think about. And I think I squished a little bit too hard on that. Again, I'm out of practice on these guys. Let's see. Maybe I did it the wrong way. Let's try it this way this time. And I think I'll probably, like I said, put a little bit of twine or ribbon or something in each one of those. But I like how they kind of end up looking like an ornament. It's just fun. It's just something fun. Okay, so I want to do something along the edge here because I actually want to bring this page back a little bit. Like I left too much space here. I want to be able to trim it so it's a little bit closer to this one, but this page in the album itself is a little bit short to use, so I can have some sort of an edge along the end there. And I was looking for I know somewhere around here, and of course I will find this after I do it, of course. I have some of that pom-pom trim. It exists around here, I know it does. But another thing that you could do is use washi tape. And so I have a few fun washi tapes here in my boxes from previous years. So you could just pick one that you really liked. Oh, this is another one that I've always really liked. I've used this one a number of times too. The gold Merry Christmas along the edge. There's also this tape from Tim. But I think what I want to do, I think I'm going to use this black because it's kind of similar to what I have going on with this part. You know, like it's a little bit like that, and I could have made it more like that if I was thinking ahead, but I didn't, so that's fine. But I want to have it, I want to just create a little bit of additional length on the end here. And so the other thing that I want to do is I want it, see how this T is really close to the edge? I don't really want it to be that close to the edge, but I don't necessarily want to go over that edge either. So I want it to be like right along here. So I'm gonna just cut it like this, but I think what I'm gonna do is tape it down on the back, find my tape, and then I can do the other side on top and that will hold it together. So let's say we know that I want that joy to be right there on the end. And of course my tape is like too wide, so let's just make it a little thinner. And then I'm gonna put more tape on here. What that does, you can't really see it on there, which I think is great. So I could even just do like a bigger, yeah, you can't see it at all on the vellum, which is a win. Okay, and actually this probably has adhesive on the back of it, but for what I'm doing right here, I'm just gonna tape it down and then I will put adhesive on the other part. So yeah, it's just giving me a little bit of an extra edge along there, so it makes it so that I don't feel like that T right there is so close on the end. And if you wanted to add more, you know, I could even do a couple, right? You could do a couple like strips along the edge that would be the, become the border there. Okay, that should be fine. And then on top of that, I'm just gonna do it again. And this time I will pull the adhesive back. and put it right on top. And this is sandwiching the tape then, right? Sandwiching the tape. All right, then getting to the end of this one here, last things for me for today are trimming off the edge there. You know, part of this was the reason why I did that border is that I wanted to be able to trim off a little bit of the edge and get these 2 pages lined up. And really that was all about not having it lined up in the correct spot on the silhouette, but that was fine anyway. So I'm using the We Are Memory Keepers hole punch to punch the holes. I just usually lay the one page on top of the other, and then I used a little paper clip today just to kind of hold those in place while I was punching the holes. Another thing I wanted to mention to you guys while I'm punching these holes too is I did end up writing just a really small little circle, a 2.5-inch circle of some journaling, which essentially says I am trying to use up I'm not buying any new wrapping paper this year. We're going to use what we have. And you'll see that on the images if you click over to the blog post. I just added that in behind the 8, so it's another little circle in behind there. And then I also did take some red twine and tie that through each one of those the metal circles there, and also adhering that December stories down. I really, really like how this one turned out. I think it's really fun. I also like there's a lot of stuff going on in the album this year. Like, I don't know if it's the new size, so it is more space, and so I feel like I can add more stuff into it. But it's kind of nice to have a little bit of breathing room, like that white vellum, the wood grain vellum from Hero Arts. Having the next page be that feels like that there's a little bit of breathing room before we move into the fun of the patterns and the circles. That was one thing that I thought about as I was putting it in there. And I always like bringing a little bit of fun and funny sorts of things into the storytelling for this month, because I think we can all use a little bit more fun too. All right, let me know if you guys have any questions on this one, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow for story number 9.